Welcome to Classroom to Code. I'm Nadia.
And I'm Noni.
We are two teacher moms in two different countries who somehow found ourselves building apps, learning AI, joining a Replit Buildathon, and realizing that maybe we were never as far from tech as we thought.
Because before we ever called ourselves builders, we were teachers. We were already adapting, troubleshooting, differentiating, testing, fixing, and trying again.
We just didn't call it debugging.
Exactly.
This podcast is about what happens when teachers stop waiting for someone else to build the thing they need and start asking, could I make this myself?
We'll talk about the messy parts, the scary parts, the what am I even doing parts, and the moments where something finally works and you think, wait, I actually built that.
We'll be talking about AI literacy, education, app building, design mistakes, accidental wins, motherhood, imposter syndrome, and what it really looks like to go from an idea in your head to something real.
And if you're listening and thinking, I'm not technical enough, I'm too late, or people like me don't build things like this, then honestly, this is the show that's for you.
Because we thought that too.
And we were wrong.
So, this first episode is our origin story, how we got here, how we met, what we thought coding was, and why we believe the teacher brain is already a builder brain.
So, welcome to Classroom to Code.
We're so glad you're here. All right. So, welcome to the first episode of Classroom to Code. As we said, we're two teacher moms and we build in real time. We're talking about what happens when the people closest to the problem start making tools themselves. So, we decided that we would start with telling you how we ended up here. I'm Nadia Iftikhar. Actually, I'm trying to get used to saying Dr. Nadia Iftikhar. I just completed my doctorate. I'm an educational researcher, a teacher of the deaf and hard of hearing, and I've spent years studying how people learn, especially people who learn differently. I'm the founder of Modal Education, which is where I take research and I create real tools. And I've been doing that for 7 years, but I'm new to the world of vibe coding, and rapidly building my own apps.
And I'm Noni. That's not my actual name. My name is Shanur Ansari, but Noni is my nickname and I've just stuck with it. I'm a teacher. I was previously a designer, graphic designer mostly. I studied fashion design, and I create digital resources. I didn't know how to code at all before until I found Replit and then decided to make my very first app.
So when did you find Replit? I'm curious how long you've been using it.
Since the beginning of the year, when Replit started their mobile buildathon, I joined during the buildathon and I learned as I went. A lot easier than I thought. You had to learn a few terms, but it really helped me create some educational apps that have become quite useful.
Okay, so you started in 2026 with Replit?
Yep, 2026, just a few months ago.
That's crazy. Me too. I have not been in the world of vibe coding for very long. I dabbled in coding. I took one intro to coding class in 2020 just because I've always wanted to build, but it was just so hard for me. I cried over making a generic weather app in this course, and I got my front end coding certificate, but I don't think I retained anything. I think it's safe to say, yeah, that neither of us are really tech people. Maybe there's an inclination towards tech, and
Mhm.
we like it, but you don't have a coding background at all, correct?
Not at all. So, like yourself, I tried to learn coding and I ended up crying. It was really hard.
It's so hard. I mean, I would just, the way that code would be unforgiving if you've got one thing in the wrong place. And we recently talked
Mm.
about how we both have ADHD brains,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
attention to detail. We've got these big ideas, but the meticulousness with which you have to code, it's kind of difficult to retain the rules, and debug that way, just the way my brain
Hmm.
works.
And also like being teachers and moms, both of us, finding that time to take out and then learn coding from scratch, next to impossible.
Yeah, yeah. I tried, and then I ended up actually. I feel bad saying it now, but I feel like I can. I felt bad saying it at the time, but I feel like now we're kind of in a safe space to talk about the shortcuts that we took, and I
Hmm.
ended up for for my final project. I hope they don't revoke my certificate, but I ended up looking up the code for the project that they wanted and then tweaking it with the adjustments instead of writing the code myself from scratch. I've always been a big believer in work smart, not hard.
Yeah,
And I,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that's, I don't say that to my students necessarily, but it's definitely a philosophy with how I work. And that's how I got through my coding boot camp that I did. And then I dropped it after that. I think I took a UX design course after that because I was like, this whole code thing is going to take me forever and I'm going to be mediocre. I'm never going to be a great
Yeah.
software developer. So we're both teachers.
Yeah,
What
and
do
I think on that topic, what Replit has done is being able to give us those shortcuts. So it's like, and that's the future. So it's good to know the basics of code, but it's kind of the future to be able to vibe code.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that Replit, what it does is it takes the design mind, like we have the design in our head, and it lets us make it without having that the barrier of knowing how to code, which is so beautiful. I remember just trying to make the right size box with HTML, I think it was, or CSS in that coding class, and it took forever. And now it's just you tell Replit, right? And if you don't like it, you tell
Hmm.
it again to fix it, and
Yeah,
you
just
get to
change
use,
it.
yeah, you're using your language.
Yeah.
Whatever you use to talk is enough for Replit. I'm curious though. I want to hear a little bit more about your teaching. What do you teach and what was the first thing you built?
So I teach primary school, which I think in America you guys call elementary school.
Hmm.
There's so the little ones from grade, well, we call it years, you guys call it grades, from year one to year six. Um, and in the UK, we have the SATs for year six children. I
Hmm.
think in America, you guys have the SATs for young adults, but it's
Yeah.
different here. We're one of the very few countries who do those exams, and we didn't have an app for it. And as much as we don't want children to be on their devices, but in year six, that's all they do. They rather look at a screen than the paper. So I thought maybe I can design an app, make an app that is that fits that niche, um, which was a SATs app. So I made this app, and the tests are in mid-May, and I launched this app in like April, and it got about 2,000 downloads within a few weeks, and it was top 12 on the educational charts on the Apple Store. There was a rumor that it was top four, but I didn't catch that myself. I was told
Oh,
by someone, but I didn't catch it myself, so I can't claim that one. But yeah, it got lots of downloads, and it's because it's an app that's not available. And it's something that was needed for the children to be able to study, because parents and teachers all know that they enjoy being on their devices than looking at previous SATs papers and practicing. So yeah, it's quite good.
yeah, that's wonderful. So you made that with Replit?
All through Replit, everything except for a couple of assets which I made myself um,
Oh,
on Canva or Procreate, which I just gave to the Replit agent to put into my app.
amazing. That is so cool. How long did it take to make it?
Few days.
Oh,
It took
wow.
a few days. Yeah, and the first prototype it makes, it's not always 100% what your vision is, but you just have to give it a few more prompts and then it makes it the way you want. I added pictures, gave it examples of pictures like screenshots of other apps for the UI and different ideas. And there was a couple of pictures I wanted to combine. And
Hmm.
it does it all for you, and it ends up with a really good result. And then little things that you want to tweak, you just give it prompts.
Yeah, it's amazing. I actually didn't start with Replit. Have you used other vibe coding apps at all?
Not at all. My first one was Replit because I saw the mobile buildathon going on, and I thought, I do want to make an app, so what's the harm? I'll try prompts. And with the first prompt, I was so impressed with what it came up with.
Yeah, so I actually didn't start on Replit because the cost. And I'm not going to name where I started because I want to tell you honestly what my experience was like. But for some background, I started my first app on the App Store. I didn't code it myself. I had created through a learning management system. I created a database or math practice application that was available in American Sign Language as well. And it's all aligned with our standards and all of that. And I did that in 2019 and I released it in 2020. It was very manually done. I put a green screen up actually in my parents' house at the time. And I was signing at 4 a.m. and then attaching it to the questions. I don't want to say there was no AI, but I was definitely not using AI in 2020. And I did all of that. It took me a year, but it was still so limited because the original place that I hosted it was not intended to be what I wanted it to be as the app where teachers can track progress and all of that. And so it was this year also that I talked to my brother-in-law, who's a developer, actually my husband's sister's husband. So, but he's extremely helpful and very good at what he does. And I said, hey, listen, I want to add a dashboard. This has been a pain point for my users. The teachers should be able to see the data of what their students do. Right now, they had to log into their student accounts. It was very painful. It was kind of a point of embarrassment for me where I was like, we should modernize the technology. What's going on here? Um,
Hmm.
and he said I could build it for you. And I've posted this a bunch of times that he said I could build it for you or I could teach you how to fish. And he actually showed me Replit first. And when he showed me Replit, I didn't understand what to do yet because I didn't even understand what vibe coding was. I hadn't even heard that term until I was already vibe coding. And I then um, realized how much it costs, especially when I wanted to learn and on a teacher's income and all of that. And so I went for a cheaper alternative. And it's interesting because I found my way back to Replit
Hmm.
because of that. And the way that that happened was I used the cheaper alternative and I ended up so frustrated by the way it worked, how it was not user friendly. It was not this is a major one. I know a lot of people use this company, but what ended up happening is I was trying to take APIs, so information from the program that I originally built my program on and pull it into this new vibe coding platform. And I felt like it was not working with me. It would tell me to go look in the code for things and change the code myself or that it can't access things. And then when I would try to tell it, no, you can, then it would be able to. But I ended up just wasting those credits on fighting the actual their agent. They don't call it
Hmm.
the agent, but yeah, to fight, that platform. And I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? At the end of the day, Replit was better. I made one experimental app on Replit and the amount of information it pulled from a simple request, I was like, there's
Yeah.
there's no comparison.
Hmm. Hmm. And when I joined, it was Agent 3 at the time, and I was so impressed with what Agent 3 could come up with just from that initial prompt. But then now they have Agent 4, and it's improved so much. I mean, the assets are so much more better. The information it collects, the whole process and the canvas. Have you used the canvas? The canvas is just great.
Haven't yet. I haven't. I've watched the live on it and I want to use it. I just haven't gotten around to doing the things that I want to do with it. There's an accumulating list, but I would love to. And maybe we should do an episode where we talk about the canvas a little bit because
Mm.
I would love to see how you use it as a designer.
Yeah, it's really great because if you're doing a website and a mobile app and a few things at once, it just spreads it out for you to see. So
Mhm.
you can like have a look at and play. You can manually place things instead of explain it to the agent. You can tell it what you want to change by clicking on the different things that you can see on your screen. It's quite cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely need to learn how to do that. But it's interesting. I think the takeaway from our conversation is that neither of us were techies necessarily.
Hmm. Not at all.
And we're not coders at all. We've both built a number of apps since we started with Replit, it's June right now. I started
Mhm.
in February.
I
Um,
think I started in January. Yeah.
wow, that's crazy. So
Yeah.
I honestly, I think the one thing that really made sold me on switching back my to Replit as my platform was I was using an app where you learn history in an interactive way. And what I noticed is that that history was very Eurocentric. So
Mhm.
it was all about the Romans and it was all about, the Greeks and American history and things like that, which is great. But that's what I learned in school as somebody in America. My history as a child of Pakistani immigrants and being, I guess I was born and raised in America, but I didn't see myself in the history apps that I was able to find. So I told Replit, I
Mhm.
said, I want to create one. I want to create one for the type of history that is interesting to me. And I want it to look like this and this. And I thought I would have to prompt it a lot more than I did. It built out a beautiful app for me. I called it Tariq History. What Tariq just means history in Arabic. I think maybe in Urdu as well. But I love it. And so what's cool is I made the app, but now I use it to learn. And it's an app that I made. So it's just
Yeah.
amazing that Replit was able to do that for me.
Yeah, that's so cool. So like it's like something that you see, but then it's more specific, personalized for yourself. That's amazing. I actually didn't know you did that. I'd like to see that one day. It's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool.
absolutely. I will and they have it in there where you can buy the URL as well, and the URLs are cheap. It'll be like a dollar
Hmm.
or $2 or something. And so I'm like,
You mean
okay,
like a domain?
yeah, a domain, yes.
A domain,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
you
can
can
make buy your own, yeah.
yeah.
That's next on my list to do.
Yeah, so I did that. I think we have to I want to be like you and be on the App Store. And I can tell you all about having a domain. So
Yeah, it's really cool.
yeah. Another thing that I think was really cool to talk about was just the way a teacher's brain works. And in this community, we call it a builder, somebody who builds apps. And I think the language is different, but the process is the same for teaching and building. And I would love if if you want to expand on that at all.
Yeah, like you know yourself that we're teachers. We have a room full of 30 children, and well, we do here. I don't know how many children do you have in a normal classroom over there? About the same?
Yeah, it's about the
Yeah.
same.
So we have a classroom full of 30 children, and they're all at different levels. We plan lessons for them. We differentiate according to their different skills, and there's so many neurodiverse children as well. So we're building different lesson plans, different ways to teach them, and adapting, and then any problems that come up with troubleshooting. And then, like you said, we anticipate confusion, what could cause any, um, setbacks, just knowing, and then being able to fight those setbacks as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I was explaining it to someone. I'm married to someone in medicine. And for him, if he doesn't get it right the first time, it can literally be life or death. And I was explaining to him because I've showed him some of my apps and he said, "Well, that's not right. You should fix that or like whatever the thing is that needs a little bit of editing." And I told him, I said, "Listen, you're in a linear profession. You have to get it right as you go. For us in
Hmm.
design, we're cyclical. So
Hmm.
we go back and iterate or change or improve as we go, as we get feedback. We've got a loop for feedback, creation and feedback. And teaching is like that too, because you present a lesson, right? How many times have you made a lesson and like the kids don't get it, or maybe one kid
Hmm.
gets it and the other doesn't, and you say, "All right, okay, now I've got to change my approach to make
Back
this
to the
work."
drawing board. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so design is like that. And so creating an app is like that too. And so I think that's the connection between, teaching and then just the product design piece of it. I said in a recent talk that teachers are product designers. Just the words we use are different, right? But we're
Hmm.
designing stuff all the time. We're curating actual things, artifacts that we're making for our students, but also designing the way that the classroom looks, the amount of time someone spends on each thing that we've got that the flow that the user goes through is the same thing as like the flow that a student goes through when they enter your classroom. So
Hmm.
in a lot of ways
Yeah.
it's a very natural jump, and I don't think teachers realize, hey, you can make that jump into tech or into building or whatever it is by using that same design thinking process.
Yeah, and it's like um we've got to know our children how to have the environment ready for them. And that's the same way applying it to an app, knowing how to have something, an environment ready for a specific target, which is, I think, really great for a teacher because it's already there, it's embedded in our brains.
Absolutely. And like the better you know your students, the better your solutions are going to be, right, for them.
Mhm.
And it's interesting when we talk about designing apps, it's kind of the same thing. The better you know your users, right, or your ideal users, the better you are going to be able to design a solution for them. And that's why, I think teachers designing for education specifically, or for the kinds of students they have, or their needs as teachers, maybe other teachers, which is a big part of what I do, is designing tools
Yeah.
for other teachers. There's no better person to do it. You don't have to outsource it to a tech person. You can have a teacher building it.
Yeah, teachers and moms in our case, having the problem are the best ones to build the solution for it because they experience it and they know exactly what their setbacks are. So they're able to come up with a solution a lot easier than someone outside. I've been on apps where people who are not in education have made those apps and they don't really always solve the problems that teachers actually need. Same
Yes.
goes for children, teachers who, for example, this is examples that teachers who deal with children who are quite neurodiverse. There are tools out there for them, but they don't always work the way teacher needs them to. So I think teachers building really helps solve so many problems when they're facing it themselves.
Yeah, and teachers who are currently in the classroom, I think is just so extremely powerful, right? Because students also change. So students from 10 years ago learn a little bit differently than they do now. Like you mentioned, the prevalence of screens and all of that, and designing for the reality of what's happening in the classrooms. You really only know in detail when you're there or you're working with
Mhm.
kids these days. So I think you've hit on something really powerful there with just being a teacher in the classroom and designing for that.
Yeah.
Um, So, what was the first moment that you thought, hey, I can actually do this?
When I gave my first prompt to Replit. Because I did have this, I wanted to code and I tried it out, didn't work. Um, and then when I saw the mobile Buildathon, I just thought, hey, like I said for hey, what the heck, I'll try a prompt. And when it built the initial design, I was so impressed. And I was like, that this shows me that I can tell the agent anything and it'll come up with anything I want. And I always say this that education has so many gaps in it, and
Mm.
Replit is the software that can fill those gaps. So the first thing I did was, I actually started on. I don't know if I'm going off topic here, but I actually started on an app during the mobile buildathon. I started on an app for teachers where we have everything in one place.
Hmm.
So they log information about a child, their behavior, um, and little notes like that, and it'll generate and this seating planner generator. Just it generates seating
Oh,
plans. Yeah, and you
cool.
can
Yeah.
also you can input children's learning levels, and then it generates parent teacher reports and end of year reports for you automatically.
Amazing.
And that's the one I did in the mobile buildathon, and then I was so impressed with the way it all linked up together, which is then
Mhm.
when I moved, which is after that I moved on to the SATs app. Um,
Oh, okay.
and then idea after idea just kept coming into my head. And I kept
Yeah.
starting a new project and a new one and a new one. And now got the two apps on the App Store, which is great,
Yeah.
which we can talk about in more detail on another time. But yeah, um, still got a lot of apps in process. What about yourself?
Absolutely. So, for me, it wasn't that I can do this as much as it was, oh my gosh, I can do this so fast and so well. So it was, I created my first app and then I had developers actually get it on the App Store through the LMS that I use. And so this wasn't my first app, but I was not managing it. I didn't code it, all of that. When I pulled my first data from the API into the app that I had envisioned, I had a light bulb go off saying, oh, this is everything that I've ever wanted. I can't believe I stuck to this as long as I did to see the technology get to this point. And then it was like it went from I can actually do this to oh my gosh, how can I stop now? The ideas are so good.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they tend to come to you. I have a question. Do you have a time or a place, maybe a time of day or whenever when the idea comes to you?
just all the time. Whenever something comes up, I'm like, oh, I can make an app for that.
Yeah, anytime there's a problem, right? It's like a way to think of things. I
Yeah.
actually, the second app I made, I did the modal math dashboard. And then after the modal math dashboard and linking it all up, that took me a very long time because I hadn't used Replit for that. Now I've brought it into Replit and it's going to be beautiful and probably even better.
Amazing.
But after that, I was driving home one day, after dropping my daughter off, and I said, "Oh my gosh." Something similar to what you said. I said there's no centralized system for teachers of the deaf who write IEPs and are doing, they're
Mhm.
traveling from school to school a lot of the time. That's a big thing with specialists. We call it itinerant teachers. And I was like, itinerant teachers need an app. Right now they're managing everything on spreadsheets. And I will say, we're post revenue on that one. It's not on the App Store yet, but hopefully soon. And people are downloading it onto their home, saving it on their home screens and using it that way. And I've got agencies and districts
So cool.
already purchasing or talking about purchasing. And that was an idea I had, and I went from that to app in the prototype was done in a day, and then I had some friends, some teacher friends test it, and over the course of the week, I had it in a state where I had all these cool features that I hadn't imagined, and it was ready to go. So, yeah, that was my second app. I've created maybe I want to say I counted 12 in the modal education world, but um that's not it. I also create for myself and for my daughter. I created one for my husband. That personal software piece of it as well, where you can create stuff that you don't necessarily have to distribute if you don't want to, and you can still use
Hmm.
it. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I've done a couple of those ones where
yeah.
it's just like fun little games for yourselves.
Yeah, my ideas tend to come to me when I'm moving, whether I'm in a car or whether
Mhm.
exercise or whether I'm, walking somewhere. But yeah, you're right. Ideas can strike
Just
anywhere.
random times. I do want to ask the modal applications that you have. You said about 12. Were they all on Replit?
So I have two of them that are not on Replit yet, because I had gone to, like, I was making money on them or using them for revenue generation,
Hmm.
before I came back to Replit. And I will be after winning the last buildathon. I now have the credits to migrate everything over. It's also worth noting that Replit has really awesome integrations or whatever it's called, where you can just click, hey, I want to migrate my tool. I've
Hmm.
used that and I brought a couple over since then. So like my projects that I had already started on the other vibe coding platform are already moving over. Replit makes that easy. And then I am going to figure out how to smoothly transfer the users over because I am on the other platform hosting the other two. But yes, the rest of them, they are on Replit. And I plan to, now that Replit has given me credits for winning the Buildathon, I plan to bring everything over and house modal education on Replit.
That's so cool. Should we talk about the win or should we leave that for another time?
You know what? Let's talk about the build-a-thon. I think we talked about this already.
Yeah.
Let's move forward and talk about how we met. I don't think we talked about how we met at
Yes.
all.
No, we didn't.
Yeah,
So
and that's interesting.
it was through the Buildathon. It was through this was actually from what I'm aware of their third Buildathon. So first they had the mobile Buildathon in the beginning of the year, and then they had the um Agent 4 Buildathon. And then
Mhm.
this was their third Buildathon, which was a 10-year Buildathon. And it was a 24-hour one where we had free credits and there was you had 24 hours, yeah, 24 hours free credits, and you could build anything you wanted to, either on a previous project or something from scratch. Um, do you want to talk about yours a little bit?
Yeah, so this is my first build-a-thon that I ever joined in my life. It was not, I'm not a competitive person, to be honest. For me, experience is a goal. It sounds so cliche to say it. I think I've just said it to my students so many times that I started to believe it. Where I'm like, we all are winners,
Yeah.
and it's not the end result that matters. So, this was the first build-a-thon that I joined, and the reason I was like, I have to use this, I'd be silly not to, is I'm already vibe coding. I already have app ideas, and they're giving free credits, for that
Yeah.
24-hour period. So whether or not I was going to join the build-a-thon, I was going to build. So I was like, I might as well just join. And I have Modal Math already. That's the first app that I created that's on the App Store. So I was like, I need a literacy one. People keep talking. I've gotten customers and users who've reached out to me and said, hey, when are you going to do language? When are you going to do English? And so I had an idea of what it would look like, and I had created, kind of the bare bones of it. And I was like, the 24 hours, I'm gonna add all the features. I'm gonna, run simultaneous, or what do they call them, parallel agents, and
Mm.
do suggested tasks and all of that. And I'm just gonna go for it. And so that's what I did. I built modal literacy. I did not expect to win, but I did win the grand prize, which is surprising.
So cool. And there was so many people during the build-a-thon was so impressed with your build because it's something that's so unique. You don't see it. It's so niche. You don't see these kind of apps quite often. And it's like um targeted for specific people, like children who are like deaf and hard of hearing. And it's like it's solving a problem. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think the number one thing for me is I know my users. I not just, through the textbooks that I studied, but also I know them. I know those students. I have them now. And I picture them utilizing what I've created and imagine, the friction that they might experience and get rid of it. But I am very big on solving problems that I know deeply. And I think that domain knowledge is what sets things apart. But can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about your bamboo times tables?
Yeah. So this was the third app that I built. I wanted to make something fun for children, something that engages them in learning their multiplications. So we have a few apps. I'm not going to name them, but there are a few apps that we use in school that children are like kind of bored with now. So I decided to make this times tables app where children can practice learning their multiplication through games. So it's like um, there's forest spirit characters which you can collect. And the way you collect them is you earn coins by playing games. The more coins you earn, the more forest spirits you can unlock. Um, and there's like six different games. So one of the games in there was inspired by the game Fruit Ninja. I don't know if you heard of Fruit Ninja.
Yes, and I played that game. I know which one you're talking about, also on your app.
Yeah. So from that I was inspired to do Number Ninja where they can slice the leaves or the bamboo or the stones that's got the answer on. It's quite fun and engaging. And there's a couple of other games in there. And it was just to get children more engaged in their learning. Again, children love their devices, so why not make them a game that they can enjoy on devices? And
Yes.
then so this I had this idea previously before the build-a-thon. And then I didn't like the way it was turning out because I kept having more ideas. So I remade it from scratch for the build-a-thon and I finished building it in 24 hours. And then the following weekend it was on the App Store, which was really cool.
That's amazing. And that's definitely a topic for next time, where we talk about how you got on the App Store. And you had mentioned
Hmm.
an accidental paid app. And I need to hear the
Hmm.
whole story. But I wanted to let listeners know what to expect from this podcast. Today was kind of an introduction, but really we want to, at least on a weekly basis, have conversations. We are teachers. We talked about that quite a bit. We are also mothers. Or
Hmm.
maybe we are mothers who are also teachers, depending on how you frame it. And
Yeah.
it is something that we're going to come back to again and again. We want to connect with other people who are in this space or interested in getting into this space. We want to talk
Hmm.
about how we take our ideas and get them on the App Store. Personally, my big goal is to get on the App Store. And Noni, I'm looking to you for support in that because there's so much that you can do with Replit. And what I've noticed is that their users are doing different things. Like someone will be really good at, utilizing some feature and someone else will know how to get on the App Store or otherwise. So
Hmm.
learning from each other in that way. Monetization. A lot of us, I'm a businesswoman. Noni, I believe you are also a businesswoman,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
that's a big piece of it. We're
Yeah.
teacherpreneurs and mompreneurs. I've heard these words.
Yeah.
Um,
Mompreneurs.
yeah. So, well, I want to talk about
Yeah.
monetization. I want to talk about design. I think, Noni, you have such a beautiful expertise in design. I will say that the reason I reached out to you on during the build-a-thon is I sent Noni a private message. I saw her name. I had seen Noni and I didn't know what that was. And then I saw it somewhere you had put Shanur. And I was like, Shanur is such
Yeah.
a beautiful name. And I was like, I wonder what that is. That sounds like a Farsi root or something. So let me just send her a
Mhm.
message. And then turns out we have the same background.
Yeah, so much in common as well.
so much in common. But I will say, I looked at a lot of beautiful projects, but what stood out to me about yours in particular, and I have your app on my phone and I use it with my daughter, is the design, just how engaging it is, how beautiful it is, how it kind of it takes you into that enchanted forest environment that you've created, and
Yeah.
it's
And
so
that's
enchanting.
because like it's for children, so it's got to be exciting for them. It can't be those plain ones that adults like something more you know, I wouldn't say plain, but a bit more, what's the word? I'm losing my word.
Yeah,
Uh,
I know what you mean.
watered down. Watered
Mhm.
down, yeah, that's the word. But children like things that are colorful and movable. There's a lot more interesting, attractive things. So yeah, it's got to
I will
be, if it's for
say,
children, it's got to be engaging.
I think adults like that too. Maybe
I do.
adults put up, yeah, I do too. Adults put up with more boring stuff, I think, but I think at the end of the day, we all enjoy an interactive experience.
Hmm.
And one of the quotes that I love is, people don't remember what you said, they remember how you made them feel. And I think that's true with the apps as well. How does that app make you feel? My daughter loves your
Yeah.
app because it's fun and she's engaged and she wants to practice her times tables using the app. She'd rather do it than with pencil and paper. I think that we also, we need to talk about design. We also need to talk about AI literacy. So much is happening. We have talked about stigma around AI use. At the end of the day, I'm a researcher. I love looking at what the numbers say, and what we can do, finding problems through the numbers as well, the data.
Hmm.
I mean, numbers or whether if it's qualitative. What are people saying about AI, and how do we get to a point where people understand what are some of the patterns that we're seeing and how do we utilize it the best way possible? Because the truth is, AI is here to stay, right? And there are stigmas, especially in education. I want to talk about the differences in the landscape. You're in the UK, I'm in the States,
Yes,
and
yes,
I'm
yes.
in the Midwest specifically, which is a different thing than being, in Silicon Valley or in New York City. I've been to both. I lived in New York, and there are different, America is huge, and there are a lot of different things happening. And I don't know anything about education in the UK. So
We'll find out.
yeah, I'm hoping you'll enlighten me.
Yeah, it's a huge, what I from what I know, there is a huge, huge difference between the education systems.
Yeah. So hopefully we can kind of, get a macro idea of what AI in education looks like, and, how teachers are using it, how students are using it, how we prepare our students for the workforce with it. Because the truth is, at the end of the day, even like prompting is a skill that people are going to need to know in their jobs.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we're not even having those conversations in a lot of schools where I am. So I think it's
Yeah.
it's something huge to tackle and talk about. And last but not least, I really want to reach out to moms and teachers and just let them know, like, there's nothing about me that means that, that I can do it and you can't. If I can do it, I believe that if you have the will, you can do it too. And maybe, somebody listening today, maybe you're the one who's going to make the next great educational app or app for moms or whatever, the problem is that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, I think that's so important to think that some moms think that, okay, they're moms now, so they have to concentrate on one thing, but there's so many opportunities for moms and educators with this. So we've got a lot to cover.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. Those of you who made it to episode 1 and made it to this point in our talk, we appreciate you and we look forward to our next episode.